Happy Thursday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Pam Gaslow to the Wolff Den. Welcome. How's everything going today?
Everything's great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this chat. We'll delve into everything. But for those in the audience, just give them a quick intro on who you are and we'll get started.
I'm Pam Gaslow. I'm a writer and I'm also a stand-up comedian, and I wrote a book that just came out last month called Don't Bring Your Vibrator to Rehab, which is a somewhat comedic memoir about addiction. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I actually would. I have the book. I read it. I would show it to everyone right now, but I gave it to my mom to read, which, in without context, might sound a little weird. But our parents know each other. My mom has known your mom for a very long time, and probably knows you since you were born. So
Probably.
I gave it to her to read. My sister read it. I thought it was a great book, and why I thought it was a great book was because it's a tough topic. And I think you're not making light of this situation, but you're sharing your experience, which it's not funny, but it's funny, right? If it's not happening to you, you can look at something like this and kind of laugh about it. And obviously, you've done some stand-up comedy, so you have that sort of comedic side to it. But talk a little bit about the book to start, and then I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe what happened before what you have in the book, and then also a little bit an update stuff about after the book.
Sure. So it's like I could have given your mom a copy, by the way. And I have
That's
actually.
fine.
So you want me to tell you about the book, or is that what you want me to do?
Whatever you want to say about the book, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about what
So
it is.
the book is about my relapse with marijuana after being sober for about 8 years. I moved from New York City to Florida about 10 years ago, and I moved to Miami 7 years ago. And when I moved to Miami, I I relapsed, and I spent 2.5 years getting high around the clock, which, at first when you get high, it's funny and fun and silly, and it was definitely that at the beginning, and then it I became like a chronic 24/7 stoner, and I literally did like basically nothing else in life except just get high and be by myself and occasionally do stupid things. So what happened was day after day and of doing this, I became so depressed, so hopeless. I was so lethargic and tired, and I couldn't really like think, and I couldn't read, and I couldn't really do anything. Um, and eventually after 2 years, I knew I had to get sober again eventually. And I just, I didn't want to. And it seemed really almost impossible to get back to where I was. And what happened after 2 years, I started throwing up from like marijuana toxicity. And that was the point where I was just at such a low point, and I was, just absolutely miserable. And I was also scared. And I was like, okay, so now it's affecting me physically as well. And I was like, I gotta stop. I was actually really scared. And that's when I decided to go to treatment finally.
Yeah,
And the book takes you through, that.
what's the movie quote? Animal House, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son, or something like that. Did you kind of feel that? That's kind of like, this is fun, but man, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah, I felt like a loser every single day. I hated myself. And when you hate yourself, you don't treat yourself nicely, and you do things it's a vicious cycle. Like, I hate myself and I don't like what I'm doing with myself. But to obliterate that feeling, I'm going to get high again. And then when I'm high, I'm going to hate myself for getting high. And, I'd wake up every day and I would just say, you have to stop. You have to stop. And I just couldn't. And Yeah, it's not a way to live. It was not living, it was existing. And it was horrible. Like I did nothing with my life. And I was really sad about that.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a few things that you said because and they're mentioned somewhat in the book. We don't want to give away the whole book because everyone should go get it and read it. It's a very good read. I told you I'm not a reader, and you said, well, how am I going to give it to you if you don't read it? But I in two tries. On my way, I was at the airport on my way to Vegas. I read half of it. On the airport on my way home, I read the other half. I don't generally do that, so obviously there was enough in there to get me excited about. Full disclosure, I've never smoked anything in my life, so a lot of my opinion, I'm not,
Wow.
I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Although some of it just seems like common sense. And I know you talked about this in the book, or maybe on some of your other I know you were on Dr. Drew, and you talked about it. Like, who gets addicted to marijuana? Like, that's not a thing. I actually had a friend in after high school that he actually came back from college and he was addicted to marijuana. And I was like, what does that even mean? And he started talking about it, and you could tell. But one of the things that I think was that is important here is you were depressed too, right? So I'm sure not everyone who gets addicted to marijuana or some of these things actually gets depressed. And the depressed part is something that could really put a light bulb on to get you to want to do help. I have some experience with depression, and you mentioned something about, hard to do things, and everything becomes like trying to climb Mount Rushmore, the easiest thing. So getting yourself to actually try and go to rehab when you've actually already been there and know what it's all about is such a huge step that is, definitely should be commended for you finally getting to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, first of all, when you talked about people not thinking you're addicted to marijuana, I mean, I think that especially now that it's legal in so many places and it's used, THC for medicinal reasons or whatever it is, I don't know anymore. I don't even, I'm so confused with all the stuff they have out there, to be honest, and I won't try it, so I won't have experience with it. Hopefully, I'd never need to. But, you know, um, yeah, the thing about marijuana is that it's like when, one of the chapters in my book is called Pot, the Slow Boat to Nowhere. It's not one of these drugs where you're like crashing cars. I mean, I hope not. I'm sure people have, but you know what I'm saying? It's not like this dangerous drug with this stigma. It's not like alcohol. It's not like cocaine. Like, usually bad things don't happen to people. But, like big dramatic bad things, like life changing things, which is why I think so many people still use it and quote get away with it, because it's subtle, but it's insidious. And that's just that's just something to think about. It's like, yeah, you're not crashing cars and you're not getting arrested and you're not going to jail probably, and you're not probably having, blowout fights with people and physical altercations, but like, what is it doing to your mind, and what is it doing to your life that it like slows you down? It makes you lazy, it makes you lethargic, it makes you eat a lot, it's all these like subtle things that I think really hinder the quality of your life. And I think a lot of people that I know personally that are like functional stoners, I think they would be functioning at a much higher level if they weren't stoned. That's just my opinion. So, and I can only know that because I've been there. It's like, yeah, I was a functional person. I ran a business for a few years stoned. And yeah, I did it, but like, how much more could I have done if I wasn't? And why was I doing that? And depression is something that I've had, basically my whole life. And marijuana makes you depressed. So it's like I'm adding, a depressant on top of being, you know, biologically always have low grade depression. That's like not a smart thing. It was just a bad recipe for life.
How do you handle how did you handle your depression growing up?
I drank until 26, and that was the first way I dealt with it, which I don't think is really dealing with it. I was on antidepressants. I did go to therapy. Therapy was never a big help for me personally, and it wasn't until I got sober I got sober when I was 26, and that's when things started to shift. And I really started to understand like what was wrong with me and how to cope with it and deal with it, and healthier coping mechanisms and things like that. So for me, I think I was just always like an addict that was untreated, and I was too young, before then to even understand that. So once I started to understand like what I was and why I was doing this, my world changed. And I'm also on Lexapro for 20 years, which helps with depression and anxiety. So it's like a combination of a lot of things, and growing up and understanding yourself more, and doing positive things that are healthy for you instead of reaching for a bottle or reaching for a substance, or bad behaviors, that
Yes,
kind of thing.
you've done a lot of writing. This is your first book. I was going to ask why did you write the book, and when did you kind of know you were going to write the book? And part of it was there's not a whole lot to do in rehab, and they encourage you to write journals, and your journal stuff was kind of funny, and there's definitely some funny parts about other people's journal writings in the book. Is that what encouraged you? Is that why, or did you have a thought before you went in that this is something I might want to do?
No, I knew before I went that I was going to write about it. So I wanted to write about it, and I knew probably way before I went there I wanted to write about it. I just couldn't get myself to go there. So, and I thought all the stuff that was going on beforehand was like funny or weird or stupid, and I'm like, started writing about that. And then when I went when I went to rehab, yeah, I bought they actually let me have my iPad, which I only was allowed to use at night, because I was like, that's like my one criteria. Like, you have to let me have to let me bring my iPad. So I wrote everything down, and then I transferred it at night. And yeah, like I wanted to chronicle that whole experience. And I never would have remembered all those things. And yes, they do encourage journaling, which is obviously not really what I was doing. I was like taking notes more than like journaling. And yes, I do mention in the book, I'm like, what are other people writing about? And then I peek over and someone's like writing, makeup tips, in their notebook. I'm like, oh, it's just so funny. So yeah, I went in there knowing I was going to write about it.
Yeah, and your interaction with the other patients there is really something that it's encouraging. It's funny, right? But you, self-described, are not generally such a warm, inviting, let's all hang out, rah rah type of person.
Correct. No, I was very anti like the group hangout type of thing. And the first day, and also a big thing in rehab is everybody smokes cigarettes, which I talk about. And it's also, that's a bonding thing. And I was the only person, everyone was half my age, and there were two tables outside. I was the only person that didn't smoke. And I'm like, I am not sitting near them. And then one of the girls at the table, I was like, I'll just sit by myself. I don't need friends here. And then the girl was like, this like 20-year-old girl was like, Pam, we all think you're really pretty. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can hang out with them. So, but you kind of have to, you're forced to, because you have to break the isolation, because addicts really like to be alone and isolated, and it's really unhealthy, generally speaking, and especially in a place like rehab where there is nothing else to do. When you're not in a group or in therapy or eating, you just have each other, and it's really so comforting knowing, and just everyone knows what your story is. Everyone has this, not the same story, but everyone's there for the same reason. So it's like there's no fronts, there's no bullshit. It's like, okay, we're all in the same boat, and you just kind of like, you get to know those people. Everyone's just honest and raw, and you get to know those people better in a few weeks than you can know your own friends in 5 years. So it's like it gets you, as much as you don't want to. I was like, oh, I'll be by myself. I'm like, I don't want to be by myself, because I've been by myself the past 2 years. So as much as like I don't want to talk to any of these people, like you have to, and you break down, and it ends up being very rewarding for everyone.
Yeah, in order to get through anything, depression, addiction, a ton of things, you have to have a circle, and it takes a village, a team. Trying to
Yeah.
go through that and resisting, being around people and others, I think would be a recipe for disaster. So it was really encouraging to see how you kind of adapted as you moved on. And there was a story about someone else, I can't remember who kind of was like never all by herself, and then finally she opened up. I assume that made it for a better experience for her. Have you taken that attitude afterwards? I mean, are you more of an inviting, open person? Have you sort of regressed back to your personality beforehand? How have you changed since?
That's a really interesting question. I think that, I live by myself and I've lived alone since college. So I'm very comfortable here, and I try to be more social, but I also try to like maybe notice people that tend to isolate and stay by themselves, because I know that sometimes like it's nice to be pushed a little and help somebody out, because people I think a lot of people are just scared of other people. I think that's part of it. And I'm definitely an introvert. I'm definitely like to be by myself, but I also do like to be social. So I don't know if I've changed, but maybe I have a little bit. Like, I definitely want to be more social, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
So
even if it's just the outlook, just that comment of saying, "Look, other people might need a push the same way you would have," and maybe you would have liked. And I know you had a close friend who was always very honest with you and kind of
yes.
tell, having you go, almost like, "Oh, you're not going to go this time. Call me when you're serious," type of thing. But
Yeah.
maybe if you would have gotten a push earlier from someone, maybe it could have been a stranger or someone who just kind of said, "Hey, how you doing?" or "What's going on." It could, some people do need that push to get. So it was good to see. The
Yeah, you never know who's going to affect you. You really don't. I mean, I remember before I got sober the first time, I was in therapy on and off, and like therapists in college were like, "You need to go to AA," and I was like, "No." And I'm like, "You don't relate to me. I don't relate to you. Like, you don't know what my life's like." And then finally, when I eventually did get sober, someone that I related to was like, "You need to get sober." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, it's just what it takes, they say.
Yeah, that's interesting. That I always something I find fascinating is that, and I was talking to on Tuesday's guest, um, talking to him about how it feels like strangers are a lot more willing to help you, and they're the ones you feel comfortable kind of opening up to more than some of the closest people, which is a little strange sometime. And then the other thing is that two people can say the same exact thing, and you're like, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. Oh no, that's a genius idea.
Right, totally.
It's uh,
Um,
it's weird to me how that happens, and these are influencers, but I think there's a lot of people who have ideas and things that need to be elevated and listened to. You're
I think it's really easy for someone to tell what for a person to tell another person what to do, but if you have to have some credibility behind that, and it's like, well, what do you know about that? Oh, you just read that in a book that I should do this. Like it's someone else had the same experience as me and they came out the other side. I'm gonna listen to that person.
Yeah,
That's just
no,
me.
it makes sense a little bit. I need to be. I'd like to be more open minded to be think that maybe this person does have the credibility. We just don't even know about it yet because they haven't had the
Mm,
platform that other people. And that's why one of the things I love to do on the Wolff Den is to just bring people on and give them a platform to share, because there's so many. We've had well known people on, but some of the people you've never even heard of have some really great stories and ideas to share. So I think we need to start elevating more people and get the people more help. Just someone hearing your story might get them to be like, look, I need to get my shit together and go do, I don't know, it doesn't have to be rehab. It could be a lot of different things, uh,
yeah.
whatever that may be. I want to talk about some of the cast of characters that were at the rehab that you talk about in the book. It almost feels like they could have been made up. I'm assuming they're not, but it almost feels like some of them could have been made up. There was such a wide variety of them and really
Yeah.
interesting people. Obviously, some success stories, some stories that didn't end up good. Are you in touch with anyone, or is that encouraged, discouraged?
No, it's actually sad. Somebody asked me that the other day, and um, a lot of the people that I were friendly with and the people that I wrote about they were very young, and they were kind of like not doing it really for themselves, I feel like. And they were either forced there or court appointed, or they were about to get divorced, so it was like an ultimatum. And it wasn't a very good vibe of, that this crew is going to stay sober. And I stayed in touch with a few of them afterwards, and then it kind of faded away. One person passed away, which, pretty soon after I was left treatment and OD'd. And a few other people like just literally vanished. And I'm afraid that I would almost guarantee another one of them is not alive anymore, but I don't know. Like, I actually reached out to one of the girls I wrote about, and her numbers just, it doesn't go through. And, so it's sad. I don't know how to find them anymore. So, but I did keep in touch with like maybe like four or five of them after for like a year or so. And I honestly, a few of them relapsed, and it just wasn't very positive, unfortunately.
You might have mentioned in the book, or what's the percentage of people who relapse from a drug rehab?
Very high. I don't know exactly,
It's
but
like
they
over
say like
50%.
I don't know, and I don't want to
I have to look that up.
make an inaccurate quote, but they say that when you're there, they're like look to the person, look at the person to the right of you and to the left of you, and they probably won't stay sober. So, I remember having a conversation with someone like, you guys, you're so young, you have your whole lives ahead of you, and stay sober now, and don't screw up and get divorced and lose all your money and go to jail and come back at my age, like. But I think it fell on deaf ears, and it's hard. It's sad. It's a very low success rate, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, when you come out of rehab, is it that? And I know some people are go to AA, and when you get to that point, is it that you can never do drugs again, smoke, drink, have a drink again? In general, is that usually how it happens, or is like it has to be? Can you learn to do it in moderation, or when you're at that point, you don't have that ability?
Um, Usually the way to do it is no, you don't
Yeah.
do it ever again. So I know that I can't do it like socially or in moderation or anything. So it's just not an option. Listen, everyone can work their own program. I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you try to manage it. It's never really works that I've seen in my experience. And it's something that, I don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need it in your life. Like, you need to eat, you need to sleep. You don't need to drink or get high. A lot of people think you do, but you don't. And I've had a million life experiences sober, and it's not something I want. It's not something I plan on doing. And I haven't had a drink in almost 26 years and
I was gonna
haven't felt the need to. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you that. The I was watching your stand up previously, and the clip I had was when they were talking about thinking you were anorexic, and you said that you ate last week.
Last week.
A good bit. This might be a really dumb question. It's probably my ignorance of not ever having smoked anything. They have non-alcoholic beer. You can get a thing for cigarettes. What is it about marijuana? Is there something you can do that kind of mimics marijuana that's not marijuana that might do something? I don't know.
No.
No. Did we
There's
invent
no
it?
like
Are we sitting on $1 billion idea?
no, and by the way, non-alcoholic beer does have alcohol in it. It just has like a small percent, so I don't really recommend that for anyone in recovery.
No.
I mean, listen, and they say it's like switching seats on the Titanic. Like, you really need to just quit. You don't need to find something similar, Find something else that's healthy. Work out, walk, read, go hang out with your friends, go to a meeting, or we're not trying to like replace it with something similar. Or, some people, it's hard. That's a slippery slope. I think it's like cold turkey, and figure out how to cope, and have a support group and people to talk to rather than like, let's find another substitute drug. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. It's no, I just something that came to my mind, but
Yeah. How have you never smoked anything? You've never even had a cigarette?
never had a cigarette. No, I was, you know what? I was an athlete growing up, and that it shocked me how many athletes are smoking. When I got to college, we were playing intramural basketball with one of the football players on the team, and this is Division One top, national championship team, and he's smoking. When I see him outside, I'm like, what in the world? I just never did. It was just important to me, and I don't know why. Something I was able to not do. I don't. I hate the smell of smoke, by the way, which didn't hurt. Marijuana, I think drugs. I don't know if it was legal. Maybe I would have tried it back then. Maybe not. My grandfather had emphysema and bronchitis from smoking forever, so that kind of discouraged me for a while. But yeah, it's one of those things like when you start doing the hey, here are 3 lies and a truth, and I say I never
Right.
smoked anything. It's not a big. I feel like I can't speak. I'm pretty sure Meredith and Evan have never too. I don't want to out them on the audience here, but I'm pretty sure my brother and sister never smoked either. Which is
Wow.
we've done a lot of bad things, but that isn't one of them. And
Good for you.
it's funny because when I was listening to you on Dr. Drew, and he's a doctor, and you know he was talking about addictive personalities, and I think what he said was like you don't have an addictive personality, but you can become addicted. I don't. That might be scientific, but there's definitely certain people who are prone to be addicted to things. I find myself that way with a lot of things. Food is one of them for me, um, which is and it's weird that I didn't get addicted to like soda. I rarely ever drink soda, which I love. If it was good for you, I would drink it every day. So it's kind of weird. Like I'm addicted to certain things. And you talk a lot about, frankly, you talk a lot about sex in the book. The title has vibrator in it. Was that something that you felt like you were addicted to, or you were just bored because of you were high all the time, and it was like I got to find something to do? Do you talk about that? I know he didn't talk about it. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. You could have named the book a lot of other things. I was just curious.
Well, first of all, the title is a little bit like, I was going to call it Don't Bring Your Teddy Bear to Rehab,
Yeah, I
but
know.
then I thought Vibrator was just so much better
I agree.
and attention getting and, edgy and controversial or whatever. But Dr. Drew did sort of ask me about this. But, first of all, when you're high, I mean, for me, like pot made me really horny. And so it was just like, I was very focused on that. And, it wasn't really like a productive or healthy way to like run your day as like someone in their mid 40s. It's not really probably productive for anyone in any age, but yeah, I've definitely had that whole sex addiction thing for a long time. But it's I don't know. I just like it. I don't think I'm addicted to it. I just think I like it and
Yeah,
like it's fun.
I agree with that. I was single for most of my life. I'm married now, but when I was single, I I liked to meet women, and
Yeah.
I was very comfortable with it. And it's fun. So I don't. There were times when I thought to myself, and I had friends. We kind of joked about it. Which, if you are addicted to it, it's nothing to joke about. There are people who are addicted to it in the same way you think, well, how can you be addicted to this? It's that you can be. And so it actually brings up the point that there's a fine line between addiction and just something you're doing or in moderation. It's a very fine line, and you can get from one place to the other in a hurry, and things can spiral and go from, hey, this is great, to I'm in trouble.
Well, that's the thing about calling an addiction. I mean, I used to call it that all the time. And like, addiction is usually defined as like make something that's like intrusive and making your life unmanageable and something that you can't stop even though you want to. So maybe at a certain point a long time ago, it did make my life unmanageable. It doesn't now. I just think I'm like just a little more interested than normal people, whatever that means. But no, it's not like a problem or anything. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mentioned I mentioned in the promo here that you've led I maybe use the word crazy. I don't like to use that word, but you've had an interesting, eventful life, and that this stuff that people will read in your book might not even be the craziest or most interesting. Do you have
It's
plans?
not.
Do you have plans for another book?
This was the toned down book. Um, yeah, I was actually I was looking at stuff this morning. Yes, I definitely do, and I started another book, but I don't. It was it was like when I turned 50, I was going to write about turning 50 and making it really funny, like funny, crazy stories, like how I got here. And so now that I just turned 52, so now I have to like work on that, revise it, and I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think what exactly I wanna write, but definitely funny stuff, not so serious, and probably about relationships and stuff like that. Because I have so many funny stories that
Yeah, I always thought
I'm saving.
I was going to write a book on my escapades, and then I'm like, well, who the hell really wants to read? There's a book called "I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell" by Tucker Max, and
Yeah.
he got picked up by MTV, and he was like an influencer. This is 20 something years ago. If I had to bet money, I would say that the majority of his stories aren't even true, just based on what I was reading, which it almost doesn't matter, right? If it's funny and it's kind of entertaining, it almost doesn't matter
I
whether it's
like that you say that because and you said to me, "Did I like these characters sound like I made them up?" Like, I have a really good imagination, but when I write, everything I write is pretty much like from experience. Like I just don't make stuff up. Like I feel like there's so much crazy and funny out there in the world that like it's just well, it's real, I'm like, I can't make stuff up that I write. Like my ex-boyfriend used to be like, I'm like, I don't know what to do in the next chapter. He's like, well, make it up. I'm like, I can't. And he's like, yes, you can. I'm like, I don't want to.
yeah.
So maybe that's held me back. But I just I take notes, when obviously when I was younger and we were all younger, things were just more silly and ridiculous and there was more of everything. And, now it's like we're like old and boring. Not boring, but so I've taken notes on everything my whole life. I mean, I have thousands of pages and I'm like, so I have a lot to like pull from. So I do enjoy just like telling, I remember my first, I tried to get a book published a long time ago. I've had agents. I didn't get published back then, but like one of the agents wrote me a letter and he's like, or she, I don't remember, was like, oh, it's so great that you have this crazy imagination and you could like make all these things up. And I was like, bitch, this is all true. I mean, so it's funny. But yeah.
Have you had any communication with the lady at Rehab who loved you? The
No, and I
administrator?
actually the intake person,
Yeah.
she was amazing. I mean, she got me to go there. Like I was entertaining myself by having conversations with her. I'm like, oh, I'll just talk to Barbara again today, see what's going on, like torture her a little bit. And she really convinced me to go, And I mean, all the ridiculous conversations I had with her. Oh, you can't bring your own toaster or whatever I said. I mean, stupid nonsense. And I was just like trying to be funny. And no, I'm sure. I don't even know if she still works there. The turnover at these places is like insane, but she was sweet. No, I don't talk to, I don't have contact with her.
My mom's name is Barbara, as you know, so it was like funny to hear the name.
Yeah.
You write a lot. You love comedy. You've done some stand up. Actually, you mentioned something about making it up. Daniel Tosh, who's one of my favorite comedians, he got his start in Miami. He was on, I think it was Whammy. He had some show. He's got a real funny bit about just make shit up. Nobody knows. That's what's funny in his comedy stuff. It's a pretty funny bit. Why don't you do more of it? Is it something that you'd like to do more of it? What about it did you like?
Um, I liked doing it when I lived in New York, and then I lived in LA for a short time a few years ago and did it there. I don't think, to me, I don't feel it here in Miami. I really just don't. And to be honest, I really enjoy writing more because stand-up's fun, but it's also extremely nerve-wracking. And I would be so nervous and anxious the entire day just so I can go stand on a stage for 7 minutes at night at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, I can't live like this, like I couldn't relax until those 7 minutes were over. So my whole day, it's like, even though I would do things and I would rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and I'm like, I just don't want to do this. It's just, And it's super hard to come up with new material. I mean, when writing, it's like you do it by yourself on your own time, and it's like not every line has to be like a winner. It's a story. Yeah, you need a lot of great material, but when you do stand up, it's almost like everything has to be funny. It's just it's very nerve wracking, and I'm like, I don't want to do this to myself. Like, it was really fun. I said in the book, like, it's really high highs, like when you're good and people are laughing and clapping, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. But when you're not good, it's a really bad feeling. And yeah, after a while, I was like, I just want to write humor. I don't want to really stand up and do it anymore. It's just too much.
Do you have any favorites? I listen to comedy all the time. I love it. And when I'm in my car, I'm on Sirius XM, Raw Dog, and Comedy Central Greats all the time. Do you have anyone you listen to or favorites over the years?
I'm the worst person because, like, I don't even watch TV. I mean, like, I'm embarrassed. But I'm a big Chelsea Handler fan, and she actually got a copy of my book, and, like, I don't know, I posted a picture of her
Oh, that was
holding
awesome.
it up. Yeah. I gotta work on this answer. I mean, I think a lot of people are funny. I think Louis C.K. is funny, and there's so many people that are funny, but I'm not like a, die hard. I need, this is my favorite person type of thing.
Speaking about writing, you had something called the Depressed Hot Girl blog. I guess your family, you know,
They weren't happy.
weren't thrilled about it. What talk about it? Are you going to create another blog? I mean, what's coming from you? Obviously, you're going to think about writing a book, but what can we look forward to seeing from you coming soon?
No, I'm not writing another blog, and I'm not a girl anymore. So I was like, yeah, I might have to, change that. That was cute for a while. Yeah, I mean, I write on Medium. I've written a bunch of pieces on Medium that did really well, and just random places. I wrote a story about learning to speak Hebrew, or I'm learning Hebrew and it's not funny, and that was in the Israeli Times of Israel picked it up. Just random random stuff, but definitely going to keep writing on Medium and whatever kind of like comes to mind, and definitely want to work on another book. Or I already have a lot for it, but what
My
are you
friend,
laughing at?
my friend wants
I
to know if
see.
you missed the body talk because he saw vibrator in your headline, and I told him, yeah, come
Nice
on.
word, body, body.
I think he missed the body talk. I think he did, right?
He has to rewind. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have to rewatch it and then and catch the body talk. You have a great relationship with your mom, which I used to love following you and your travels with your mom. You guys go travel to some really great places. How, are you going to travel more? And how is that traveling with your mom? Um,
It's
what are
super
the
fun.
disadvantages?
Um, it's super fun. Because we like to do the same things, and now, like, she lets me plan everything, so I like drag her to like all these random places, and she's a little bit over it now. I'm like, okay, well, it's a 7-hour car ride to the middle of nowhere, and she's like, no, and I'm like, all right, well, next idea. So no, we have fun. The only thing we fight about is the air conditioning and the long car rides now, because I like to just be in the most remote locations on Earth. And so I might have to do those trips with my friends now.
Yeah,
So
I, I,
we
tra-
went to Mexico City recently. It was fun. That's an easy, manageable thing. But
I
we have a
travel.
great time.
I travel with my sister sometimes, and we are very different. So I kind of understand that. We went to Ireland, and I wanted to drive, rent a car and drive to see the whole entire island, and she wanted to take a bus tour. She, was worried, and we got to the cliffs of Moher on a bus tour, and it was foggy, couldn't see a thing in the cliffs of Moher. Have you been to Ireland?
No, but I want to
Uh,
go, and I would definitely
I,
be driving around with you, like looking at everything. I'm not going on a bus.
yeah, I would recommend it as your next stop. But the ironic thing is, as we're leaving the bus, within 15, 20 minutes,
Oh,
the,
so you did go on the bus.
oh yeah, I went on the bus. I don't, with about 15, within 15 minutes, the fog was gone. And if we were standing there, because of the car, it's still a great trip. We have a great time, but I understand like there's just certain things, you know, when you're talking about an event locally, it's not a big deal to not do this or not do that. But when you're on a trip, you never know when you're going to get back somewhere.
Oh,
So
I'm
finding someone
100%
you can
agree.
travel with is a huge, huge thing.
Completely true. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, well, if we're 20 miles from this place, let's go there. Because like my mom and I went to South Korea a few years ago and Indonesia. Like we went. It was an amazing trip, and I was like, I started researching. I'm like, well, that's only this many miles, and that's only that many miles. Like, we're never going back there. Let's do it. And then then it just is endless.
We're yeah, and I would say, look, if you're not going to want to go here, then I don't want to go to this place with you. Let's find somewhere else. Like, let's find a different country,
Hmm.
nation. Give us you said remote. Give us a place that most people haven't been to that you have that you would recommend.
Uh, I went to a place last May. It's like borderline Arizona and Utah called White Pocket, which is really fucking amazing. It's this like wild looking terrain, like it looks like you're on the moon, and you had to like drive 3 hours from Vegas and then another 45 minutes to the place, and then another hour long ATV ride to get into the middle of nowhere. And the pictures I have are just incredible, and it was so peaceful and serene. And so that's like something that's like in this country, most people, but you literally, I can't get there unless you take an ATV ride for an hour. So it's like most people are not going to show up for this,
Is that
but
near
super fun.
is that near Burning Man, where Burning Man is?
No, no, we stayed in a town called Kanab, Utah, which you can
Okay.
look it up. But yeah, it's like, I think it's like a 3 hour ride from Vegas. And I'm actually going to go to Death Valley soon,
Oh,
which is
nice.
also like a little bit out of Vegas. So I actually hate Vegas, but I guess it works for you know,
I
stopovers or whatever.
I was just in Vegas. I do like Vegas because there's some shows that I like to go to. The food is good, and then I like old school Vegas with some where the music is. But the ritzy red carpet type of stuff, that's not for me anymore.
No,
Yeah. The
no.
you had a couple. You talked about a couple of companies, Handsome Jack and Pamela Jo, and you're an artist yourself. What uh, what was that all about? How'd you get into that? You've obviously sold it. Is that something you still do, art as a sort of a side thing, or maybe professionally, something that you like to do?
I've done so many different things like that. I mean, I made mixed media pieces years ago that I used to sell, and then I started making adult t-shirts, and somebody saw them, and she was a rep, and or I don't remember exactly. And she's like, "Oh, I think I made some little kids ones because they were just so cute. I just bought like little t-shirts. I'm like, oh, it's so cute." And then I made some, and then somebody introduced me to a children's clothing line rep, and she was like, "Oh, these are so cute. You're going to do my trade show, and I'm going to rep you." And I was like it all happened so fast, and I was like, okay. And then it just like took off, and I just stopped doing the adult stuff, and it was super fun. And yeah, the girls' line was called Pamela Jo, and the boys was Handsome Jack, and I had it for like 10 years, and it did really well. And then 2008, when everything sucked. All my stores went out of business, and I was like, okay, that's like I had a good run, and like I was kind of sad, but it was just like done, and that's kind of like. And then I moved to Florida about a year later. So, and I've done, I've made jewelry, and yeah, it's like now it's like a hobby. I don't now I'm more like into the writing and that kind of thing. So, I like to be on the computer. Anything I can do, like on my phone or on the computer, like you could create. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, the Rehab, the book, when you went to Rehab for the second time, was that 5 years ago? Was it
What
19?
year was that? Oh my God, I don't even know now. It was 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay,
Oh
so
wait, I was
you're
38. I was 40. I was 48. So
yeah, five,
four
almost
years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and you're doing great now, obviously. What does your day consist of? Do you do mostly writing? Because it isn't like having nothing to do and just sitting around and maybe not. Isn't that like a recipe for trying to figure out like maybe start to smoke again? You have no problem with that? It's not anything you want to do anymore. You're pretty good there.
It's nothing I want to do, and I don't know. I fill my days like I'm out. I'm just like outside a lot. I walk 5 miles a day. I work out, or I'll ride my bike. I see friends. I'll go to an AA meeting. I read a lot. Talk to people. It's not like something so interesting, it's just like a normal life. Like have dinner. It's like whatever. It's just nice. I mean, I live in Florida, so I have like that luxury of just being outside and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I always ask. It's probably a question other people ask, but would you go through the whole thing again if you could, or if you could go back and change, and just maybe never have smoked whatever it is, that second time you were going bad or having that time? Would you go back and change it? It's interesting. Most people say I would never change it. I guess it depends. Some people will be like, yeah, I wish I could never have done that, regardless of how good I've done and all the good that I have done. I think it's always an interesting thing to be like, would I go back and could I change that? Would I do that?
Yes, like, because I don't think that anyone would want to like have 2 years of their life like completely filled with absolutely nothing besides misery. So, yeah, I would definitely, if I could go back and not have to live through that and not have to go to rehab. I mean, yeah, I got the book out of it, but I could have written a book about something else, that was like more positive. And I mean, knock on wood, I'm in a good place today. But yeah, I don't think I needed to put myself in that place. I would rather not.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. In your writing, you talked about, maybe you write another book, a lot of topics, some crazy stuff. Is there something you could share, a story you could share that's interesting, that maybe it could be we might see it in a book that's not too, I guess, I don't know, bawdy. We don't want to say bawdy. We
There's
don't get
there's so many stories, Matt. I don't know.
one. I just want to get
So
one. There is one crazy story of the life of Pam.
oh, I don't know. Go So funny. I'm trying to think of the pieces that I wrote on Medium that are funny.
Yeah.
But even just like I said, the one about learning to speak Hebrew because I met, this really like hot Israeli assassin when I went to Israel and becoming like obsessed with him and obsessed with living in Israel. I mean, I that was a whole other phase where I was like watching Fauda and learning to speak Hebrew and meeting Israeli men and just loving that whole like the whole military vibe and that kind of thing. So I don't even know if I just answered your question, but that's like a funny thing that I'm definitely going to write about. And yeah, the story about learning to read Hebrew on Medium is pretty funny. And my motives for learning to speak Hebrew, not read it, were all wrong, but hysterical nonetheless. So I don't
And
know.
sometimes it's just about, getting it done and not why you're doing it, which is like going back to the book and the rehab that, you talked about that they were there for the wrong reasons. It's still better to be there for the wrong reasons than not. But also, if you're setting yourself for failure, then you're going to come back and it could be a weird time. So it kind of ties back to something you said earlier. And now I was just thinking, I was going to ask you about, movies or television. You say you don't watch that. To me, that's a lot more unlikely than someone like me who's never smoked marijuana. How do you not watch movies and TV? Where did that come from?
I think as a kid, I watched a lot of TV after school. And then once I went to sleepaway camp and like it was like cold turkey, there was no more TV. I never watched TV again. I mean, we're talking like I was like 9 years old. And then I remember like in high school, I had a TV in my room that wasn't plugged in for 4 years. Like it just sat there. Like I'm just weird. I don't know. I don't go to the movies. I mean, occasionally I will watch like a good series sometimes, but I'm always just like doing something else. It just doesn't interest me. I don't know. I feel like it's not a great use of my time. And I don't, that sounds judgmental. There's a million things you could watch that are educational and funny. And it's not what I gravitate towards. Like, I don't, I just, I don't know. I'm on my phone. It's not any better. It's not like it's healthy. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok now. I mean, it's like I'm talk on the phone. I read all kinds of bullshit. So that's more like my go-to than a TV. And actually my TV in my living room is broken and I'm really like upset. But like I wouldn't even know for weeks that it didn't even work. But I don't know. It's just not my thing. I don't sit home and like watch movies. I just don't.
Yeah, we watched TV growing up and a fair amount. Never had a TV in my room until I went to college. And it was, I also went to sleepaway camp. And I had a funny story. I was such a deep sleeper that one time we were watching an All-Star game or something, and I rolled under a bed and was in such a deep sleep that the whole camp couldn't find me for like an hour. Nobody looked under the bed. What camps did you go to? Do you
I
remember?
went to Racket Lake for like 4 years. I went to an arts camp called Bucks Rock, and I went to New England tennis camp, and I went to a camp I think called Brookwood. I went to a lot of camps.
You went to a lot of camps too. We kept moving, and so I wish I could go back and do the camp experience because I was so shy back then. I wouldn't talk to anybody, and we kept moving, so
Yeah,
you didn't get a chance to just form those friendships over the years. That's something I would love to do. Go back and do is be a little bit different, more like I am now. Which not that I'm the most outgoing person, but definitely warm up a lot faster than I used to.
that's funny. I started writing about sleepaway camp. Like I did not like it either. I was,
I kind of liked it, but I didn't. I wish I would. I think I could have enjoyed the experience more. We went to day
I
camp,
get it.
and then we worked. I worked at a few day camps. I actually got fired from a couple of day camps for being too social with the other counselors, and then the kids were complaining about something that just wasn't true. But nothing like
I
nefarious.
like day camp, but like I don't want to sleep in a bunk. Like I don't want to like hear everybody snoring, and the showers were disgusting. It was like the army without like the military aspect to me. Like and I didn't like sports, and the whole day was filled with sports. The only thing I liked was arts and crafts. So eventually I went to an arts camp. So that's could be contribute to why I didn't like it. I literally didn't like any of the activities and like, you know,
Yeah, arts and crafts just a little bit, swimming and sports and
I hated swimming.
I didn't. Yes, sometimes I didn't like swimming, but I have a pool here now, and it's crazy enough in Florida. It's too cold to go in until we can get it heated up. But look forward to being in,
Funny.
hanging out in the pool. Florida, man, it was cold last week, wasn't it? It was. I mean, for you and I, we grew up in
It
that,
was cold.
but for down here, it
I
was.
turned the heat on one night. It didn't even work. I was like, damn,
My wife turned the heat on. I'm like, what are you turning the heat on for? Just
it's
we don't
cold.
need the heat. Just put on a sweatshirt. We're fine. It'll be done in a what's on your bucket list? Do you have something on your bucket list that you'd love to do? It could be travel. It could be an experience. Something in your life that you haven't done. You've done a whole lot. Um,
Definitely, there's not like one thing. I don't really have that, but there's definitely like traveling. I have like a million places I want to go, and there will never be enough time. And COVID's really put a little damper on that. But yeah, I just
what's
have like,
highest on your list? Do you have something in mind? A place?
oh my God, you should see my list.
Oh,
What's also trying to find someone to go everywhere with. Most people can't really just go whenever they want. But um, I want to go to, I've never been to Machu Picchu. I want
yeah.
to go there. I want to go to Portugal. And
Been to,
I literally want to go everywhere. I want to go to the Dolomites. I want to go to Taiwan. I want to go, like you name it.
it's
Like
crazy how many
my
places. So how do you choose? I mean,
Iceland.
yeah, it's so crazy. That's why
Yeah,
I really embrace every time I get to go somewhere like that because I'm like, I never know if I'll get back. I never know when I'm going to go do another one again. You
right.
don't travel by yourself at all?
I've contemplated it many times, and it's just like I don't think it will be as fun. Like I do always want to like turn to someone and have the memory with them and laugh at something with someone. I don't. It also depends where you go. I actually think I'm going to go to Israel by myself, but I've been there alone before too. Which it's a whole different experience, which I actually like being able to do what I want whenever I want and eating when I want and what I
That's
want,
what I
and
like.
I don't have to agree with anybody about anything, and
I do that for
So
everything
it's
here.
not my favorite thing.
I do that for everything here. Go to a movies. You know, if I can have someone to do what you want to do, like mine's, it's great. But I'm not going to let that prevent me from doing. And that's one thing that my sister
Right.
does great. She'll travel anywhere by herself, which is, I mean, she went to India and all these places by herself. You know, I think that's a good way to be. You know, do it. You know, because look, if I have someone to
No,
go
I
with,
think it's awesome. I do. It just really depends on the place, you know. I think every place is different. Like I would go to any city by myself. I've done that. But internationally, I went to Israel once by myself.
what,
Yeah.
what's the most important part of your travel? Like for me, I want a place that has good food, and you know, I want a place that has some form of entertainment, maybe music. Those are two of the more important things for me. What's important to you when you're traveling to places?
Okay, that's so interesting because a friend of mine who I usually travel with, like food is so important to him, and I'm like, I don't care. I'll eat an apple in the car. So like,
Like food you
I
can't
just
get
want to.
elsewhere, food that's unique to that area or region.
It depends, and like I mean, really just depends on the place. But I just more want to see like just interest. I love culture shock. Like I want to go somewhere where it's like, oh my god, wow. I mean, it's not easy to find that, but just sights and just like beautiful places, you know, like mountains or you know any kind of interesting terrain or just anything unusual. That's just going to be, you know, I used to like to go to cities and go shopping. Like now I don't like that at all anymore. Now it's like more nature and, you know, hiking and that kind of thing.
There's no shortage of play. I mean, you could win the Powerball and never have enough time to get everywhere you want to go, which is
Yeah, I know.
it's crazy to think. We'll let you out of the Wolf Den with the same question we let everyone go. You can pick one person in the world to spend a day with. You can do whatever you want with them, and they 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 can't be dead. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would you pick, and what would you guys do?
Um, I would pick David Letterman.
Okay,
What would we do? I don't know. He'd probably like we could just banter and he'd probably like make fun of me and
he was
like
great.
just giggle and laugh. I
What a
know.
shock it was to see him when he let himself go, though. Right? Wasn't that just like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah, I
He's
don't
a
love it.
great choice. He's my first time we've had him listed. I've tried to do a little bit of outreach. I don't know if I can make it happen. Start your comedy again. You'll be on his whatever, I forget what his show is. Anyway, really appreciate your time here. I encourage everyone to check out her writing. Get the book. Don't Bring Your Vibrator to Rehab. You can find it at her website, which is I added extra www on that. That's my edit issue here. My editor is check out Instagram. A lot of just entertaining stories, and look forward to seeing what's next. And we have a couple great guests next week. But keep up the good work and good luck with the rest of the book. You did a book signing. I didn't even get to mention the book signing. That looked awesome. I'm sure that was a fun experience. Hopefully, you have some more going there. And yeah, look forward to hearing what's next from you. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Have a great